G'day, Bomber fans! Well, mixed emotions, I reckon, with this one. We travelled up to the Gabba with 19 metres of our list on the sidelines. We had our 5th string key defender as the lone big man back there, playing a 90-year-old in the ruck, decimated by injuries. I was expecting a triple-figure loss or close to it, but we go out and really make the Lions work. In the end, we lose by 3 goals. We definitely could have won and we didn't. That is disappointing. But I feel like, despite the loss, I am happier with this result than I am with about, half our wins from the season. Yeah, so in the end, the better side won. They really did deserve to win the Lions, but there was a lot to like out of this game. So let's talk about it. And of course, remember to leave your votes in the comments down below. Role player attached as always. Okay, quarter by quarter recap. The first, that is how the game, that's how I thought it would play out. The Lions were clean, they were efficient, they were ruthless, they were forcing us into turnovers and scoring from it. The annoying thing is, we're undersized in defence, but the ball was living down there. 20 inside 50s to 7 in the first term, 9 scoring shots to 2. There really wasn't a lot we could have done. Nick Martin made things look slightly better with a lovely goal, but Brisbane were just tearing us apart. We were 6 goals down at the first break, and I thought it was going to get much worse. But in the second, it got better. We had some injuries. Durham was playing sore, Gresham was playing sore, but we started scoring. Peter Wright got going. He kicked 2 in a really impressive quarter from him. Sam Durham on one leg kicked the 3rd of the term. All of a sudden, we're back in the game. The Lions, they're wasteful. They kicked 6 behinds until a late Logan Morris snap. But at halftime, we had reduced the margin. We were 26 points down, which at quarter time, I thought if anything we'd be 62 points down, but to our credit we stayed in the hunt. The third quarter, that was good to watch. That was some fun footy. That was some Bombers footy. It's probably the most enjoyable quarter I think we've played all year, or close to it at least. And it was the Nate Caddy show. The bloke was doing everything. He was taking screamers, kicking snags over his head, missing open goals. He was lighting it up and really bringing us back in the game. I feel like he was the one doing it for us, or I guess him and Jai Caldwell. Caldwell, his efforts in that quarter, he had the Lions scared. The team, we had the Lions scared. We only trailed by 12 points at the last break. And the final quarter, it was big early. Jade Gresham snapped through a beauty. Old Gold popped up for a major to bring us level. Peter Wright, behind from him, gave us the lead for the first time all night. But in the end, the Lions, they just closed it out as great teams do. We had a chance to win it. The game was there for the taking. But the Lions, they applied more scoreboard pressure while making it harder for us to score. They closed out the win 90-72, 18 points. But trust me, it was closer than that. We gave them a real fright. So yeah, let's talk about this game of footy. Okay, well, it's become almost customary for me to talk about our opponents first, because if I don't, I know you guys will in the comments. So Brisbane, they were not great. I'll say that. We got to start by saying that. But also, I feel like, if they had gone out and lost against the Hawks last week, I'd take less away, from this loss or this performance from us. But they are fresh off smashing the Hawks at the MCG, one of the best teams in the comp. Then the following week, we fly up to the Gabba and really make them struggle. Yes, I mean, you can go on about how the Lions had a bad night, but they started the game bloody hot. They were looking like belting us early. It was brutal. It was lovely to watch from them, but it was brutal. And then we go out and take away their strengths. We limit their time with the footy, apply proper heat. The Lions didn't start the night flat. I think they finished it pretty flat, but a solid, that could come down to the way we were playing. They had their way with us early in the game. They were looking far from flat, and then we changed the flow of the game. We make them look worse. And to me, yeah, that is Essendon making Brisbane look worse than what they are. We did what Hawthorn couldn't do last week to the Lions. So Brisbane weren't at their best. I know negative Nancy's in the comments are going to say that, but I think we are a big reason for that. Take nothing away from this performance. I know we lost, but take nothing away from the performance, because we really changed things up to give ourselves a shot in this game that we shouldn't have had a shot in after quarter time. I think, in the end, the main thing deciding this game for me was the height, and that sounds pretty simplistic. We don't have much height. Blame it on that. But it really did change the way we played the game, and the Lions took control of the air because of it. It's so tough to defend the Lions with their ball movement if you don't have guys like Reed or Ridley or Mackay. We didn't have any defensive half interceptors in our team. We were playing Pryor and Redmond as a second key back, despite them being under 190 centimetres. It forced us to throw numbers back there to help them out, which we did. We flooded back there a bit at times, but doing that opened up holes around the ground. It made it really easy for the Lions to chip the ball around in their defensive half, moving it forward. In the end, they had 136 marks. We had 77, so that tells you the tale. It was frustrating to watch. And I guess it's easy to couch coach, tell the boys to play man on man. I'm sure plenty were yelling at their TVs saying that because it looked like we could have. But if we did that, we would have isolated our small back line in D50. And yeah, I guess we really played the game the only way we could without it blowing out. And it still played right into Brisbane's hands. That's the frustrating thing about it. They controlled the air all night. They would have either way we played. It was only really when Wright and Caddy got going that we started to look more competent when the ball wasn't on ground level. But yeah, even if it was, Reed or Mackay, one of those two would have made this game not winnable, because I guess it was winnable, though, even without them. But that it would have completely changed our structure and system having just one more key defender down there. And it would have made us look a better side. The only annoying thing is that we have another 4 weeks of games like this. So we're going to see how we go against some more good teams. But I guess, having that smaller backline did force us to play a bit quicker, which was, in the end, more exciting to watch. The way this game was playing out, it was kind of them punishing us for turnovers and us beating them out of the guts and scoring through there. They're a cleaner and slicker team. They really do damage on transition and they love a good counter-attack. It's why their goals just felt, I guess, easier or more deflating than ours for us. We go inside 50, we miss a pass, the ball sails over our head for a goal, whereas we have to really work inside the contest for our goals. They took so much effort. And I guess that's rewarding when it comes off, but it also makes it bloody hard when the Lions get their goals on the outside. They dice us up in the middle of the ground, making us run. I think it's just hard to win a game of footy like this. And it's not impossible, but I guess, Brisbane's strength for me is just how mature and efficient they are with their decision-making, whereas we were tough, we beat them in clearances, contested possessions, but when it's on the outside, we're just no match for a team like that, and most of footy is played on the outside. So yeah, I think we had control of the game in certain areas, and that is great. That to be in control of specific parts of a game against a premiership contender is a huge tick, and it shows that our strengths are strong. But yeah, I think we just lacked polish and class to close it out, and they didn't. That's why they were so good on turnover and we weren't. We turned the ball over a fair bit, but even when they kicked it to us, we just weren't doing any damage to make them pay. And part of that is who we're missing. No Reed and Ridley, great ball users, even Langford. These guys are super important to the way we play and dispose of the pill. And it's part of the reason why Merritt was now playing in defence, because we don't really have any good ball users back there without those guys. Same with Martin starting off halfback. We're taking midfielders away from the midfield to give us creativity out of the back half. And in the end, we got taught a good lesson as to how important it is to be clean and clinical. And I don't mean in front of goals, because we took our chances more than they did. But the way they progressed the footy, it was at times just too much for us. It was a good learning experience, I think. I want to talk about our defence, because, I did not expect us to be keeping the Lions below triple figures. Last week, they kicked 93 points away from home against a defence with Sicily, Barras, Battle, really high-profile big names. This week, the Lions kicked 90 at home against a defence with Jaden Laverty. And I know it was a bit wet, I get that, but some of the efforts from our defenders to kill the ball when it was travelling in there, it was incredible. Laverty was awesome. Pryor and Redmond worked so hard even though they were often in mismatches. Andy McGrath yet again pocketed a great small forward. I love Country Roads. I love John Denver. He's a legend. And if that song is playing, I'm happy, even if it's after Charlie Cameron goals. But I didn't hear a lot of that song. And the thing is, right, it is so easy for defenders to be whipping boys. Pryor's been one all year. McGrath's been one for all his career. This could have easily been a score of 150. We would have talked about the back six and yapped on about how bad Pryor is and how bad McGrath is, while forgetting everything else going on in the team. But Brisbane scoring 90, they had 62 inside 50s. They should have scored more, Yes, they plenty of behinds, but plenty of those behinds were us forcing shots on tougher angles. We really do have to give our back six more credit. Everyone, we harp on and hate on them so much when things go wrong. But after games like this, we have to be happy about this performance from them. If you told me that we'd be playing, a game against the reigning premiers with Jaden Laverty as our only key back and we wouldn't get absolutely annihilated, I probably wouldn't believe you. But yeah, that happened. It was a tough, gritty defensive performance. We weren't intercepting. We don't really have anyone there who can at the moment, but we were killing the pill when it was in dangerous areas. They gave it their all back there, the defenders. We're going to be in some games of footy if they keep playing like that. Now, a few negatives more from an availability viewpoint. So Sam Durham, there are slight concerns that these may be done as syndesmosis. He did play out the game, but he did so in the forward half and looked very uncomfortable, very proppy. It may just be a rolled ankle. That'll hopefully it's that, but he's going to get scans. We'll see what happens there. Jade Gresham was very sore all night. I think from an early contest, I don't really know. I'm recording this pretty soon after the game, but yeah, he didn't look like he was having fun. And I guess the other one is Durham again. Not an injury, but late in the game, he arrives late to a contest and applies a very silly bump into the back of Ainsworth. I think it was Ainsworth. And look, the thing is, if there is any damage to him now, to Ainsworth, whether it's head or ribs or back, if there's damage and he misses a week with injury, Durham's probably suspended. He elects to bump. He really shouldn't. He leaves the ground. I think his suspension is definitely a worry and probably fair, I guess. I think it's all about outcome. Ainsworth played on and he looked okay. If he's fully fit, he's fine. I think, Durham's safe. But any injury concern there, and Durham may be on the sidelines for a week or two. It was very silly. Shouldn't have done it. You need to cut that out of the game. I know, some will say it's tough. I think it's just cheap and silly. So, yeah, we might be sweating on that one a bit. But yeah, look, to sum it up, a win would have been great. The annoying thing is, there was a win there for the taking. We were in the lead in the last quarter. And I guess the fun thing about this is now, I'm disappointed. I think we could have won that game and we didn't. And for me to be thinking that way, being disappointed about not winning a game in these circumstances, I thought this game was going to be a lot uglier than that. So yeah, that is good. We had our backs against the wall, injuries everywhere, young team, a team of babies. We had 13 players under 25. They had 16 over 25. This was a game where, we had a premiership contender fresh off a win against another premiership contender, and they looked scared. That they had to fight to protect the game from a loss. And for us to be causing a team to stress that much with our current situation, for me, that shows that there's plenty for the future. And that's the most pleasing thing for me. Again, we have more proof that we're moving in the right direction. Caddy he's going to be a star. He was unreal. Johnson on debut, solid. He clearly looked like someone on debut, but for him to be getting games, that is great. He had the most intercepts for our team until he was subbed off, by the way. Angus Clark, I thought he was really good in moments, and he had that incredible debut last week as well. Archie Roberts, he was immense. Dave Wicks had some moments too. Hobbs was busy. We had kids really stepping up, and it's what made that second and third quarter so exciting. It wasn't Merritt, it wasn't Peter Wright, it was Nate Caddy and Archie Roberts. We're seeing the future in front of us. I was, going into this game, I was going to be looking out for glimpses, but I think we got too many to look out for. And we also got, to shift magnets around and learn more about the team and our structure. We learned that Merritt could easily be a Dane Zorko as he winds down, who obviously have to spend more time in defence, but that is a role for him in the future when he's not a midfielder anymore. We learned that Durham is a bloody tough nut, ankle injury, plays up forward, has some good moments. We learnt that even with Merritt and Durham not in the midfield full time, we can still match it or beat a premiership contender in that zone. This game is so positive in so many ways. I would have loved a win, but this loss was as good as most of our wins this year. I'm happier, and I've learnt more about this club from this loss than I did from the North Melbourne win, or the Richmond win, or the West Coast win, or the Port win. Pretty much all of our wins. Yeah, this was an exciting Essendon team. It was led by the kids as well. And the thing is, right, that should be the benchmark in terms of effort. I get that. But I know for a fact there'll be more blowouts. We're going to have more games that we lose by 60 or 70 or 80 points. I can guarantee you guys that, and I know that people will get very mad when it happens. But if this is how good we can be against a top team, with all our injuries, we relied on our kids and they stepped up. Yeah, I think that was a seriously impressive performance. We didn't get the win, but there was a real belief and spirit in that game. And yeah, I'm proud of the Bombers. If we can churn out another game like that in the next few weeks, contend with the Cats maybe, or maybe contend with the Dockers in Perth, maybe go out and beat the Blues. If there's something like that, that would make me even happier. But great signs, very promising signs from a very much a team that is unfinished. in terms of the product. So yeah, there's plenty to like about how we're going this year, I think. Okay, votes. Now hear me out, right? This may be because I'm fresh off watching the game. I know his stats aren't anything crazy, but I'm giving one vote to Nate Caddy. I just think that every time he was near the footy, something happened. You know, even early in the game when he wasn't, you know, he was off it a bit, he was applying heat. There was a turnover that he forced through his tackling pressure. He was chasing down opponents. But later when he got going, he 3 contested marks in the wet, 2 goals, 1 goal of the year contender, 1 miss of the year contender. He was down back intercepting. He was on the wing using his legs. Harris Andrews in the first half had 6 intercept possessions. After halftime, he had 2. I thought Caddy was causing absolute chaos. And yeah, it's no surprise that when he got going, the team got going. And that was honestly, I think that's the best game he's played for the club. And I know it doesn't look like it on paper. I think he barely had 10 disposals. But he was so important in this game. But yeah, the next 2 for me, Martin and Caldwell, these guys so clearly best on ground. You know, they were massive. Both of them. Martin kicked 2 goals, 29 touches, ran everywhere. Caldwell was a bull inside the contest, 30 touches, 10 clearances, a cheeky goal as well. My role player for the game is Jaden Laverty. He had a bloody tough role, but to his credit, he played it. The Lions didn't get much going from their tools in there. I thought Laverty was tough and reliable. Great stuff. But yeah, plenty unlucky to miss out. Redmond was great. I thought Merritt down back and right up forward were really good. Roberts is the one who I wanted to give votes. He was great. But yeah, I just feel like on the night, I don't know, maybe I'm misreading this and I'm buying into the hype because everyone was talking about him. But I really feel like Nate Caddy, for probably the first time in his career, looked like more than just a promising player. And he really looked like an AFL forward. Yeah, he's going to be a star, this kid. But yeah, that is that. A loss that feels more like a win than some of our wins this year. I guess that's the best way to put it. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. We move on to next week against the Blues. I'll have a VFL recap out tomorrow. We get to see Liam McMahon play down back, I believe. I'll have player ratings out on Sunday, and then it's all about the Blues, and looking forward to that. So I'm excited for that game. I'm going to be there. I'll be. You know, I was dreading that after all the injury chaos, but after this performance, I'm keen to see what we dish up. Yeah, good job, Bombers. Not the win, but yeah, it was a decent game. That is all. Cheers for watching. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.